And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Beyond the 90. Hull 0, Leicester 4. Nice preseason game. We've got Charlie with us. Charlie, again, thank you for joining us. It'd be great to have you on. First of all, what do you think of the match in general?
Solid performance. A lot better than what we saw against Notts County and Luton, that's for sure. I know people tell you not to read too much into results, but yeah, I thought regardless of the result, the display and the performance was very positive, especially in the second half. Probably got a bit lucky at the start of the second half with that Barnes deflected goal, which really gave us the momentum to move forwards. But yeah, overall, really solid. I thought we looked better in a back four in the second half, and I thought Maddison and Soumare in particular shone.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get into we'll jump into them too. Definitely, they're two players to mention the first half. Second half, but I do want to get into the first half again. 3-5-2, kind of a similar formation to what we saw again in the second half against Leuven. Amartey, Vestergaard, Soyuncu. Soyuncu just, it doesn't look the same. But one player I have to shout out. I've not been a fan of Vestergaard, but in a back three, when he's got pacey players alongside him, he's actually not bad. It's in a back two that he just seems to absolutely struggle.
Yeah, I think Vestergaard's one of these players where you just need to create very specific environment for him to thrive. So it's a team where you know you're going to dominate the ball, so there's not going to be overly lots of defending to do. Like you say, put him in the middle of a back three so his pace isn't exposed and he's got defenders either side of him. If he's in that environment, I think he's a very good player. He can get the ball, he can pick passes, he can do this, that, and the other. It's just like you say, if it's a flat back four, if we're under continuous pressure, you just worry that he's just got a clanger in him.
Yeah, and if he's trying to turn back on himself, it's just everybody's got him for pace, and it's frustrating. But again, in this performance, in that back three, considering them three, Amartey, Vestergaard, Soyuncu, shaky players, they're not the most. Don't feel me the most confidence, but I think Hull didn't really challenge us. But as the back three, I think they dealt with the majority of things. Even Vestergaard won a header. I put it down as 60 minutes, like corner, ... because normally that ends in first corner is normally ending in a goal, but Vestergaard won a header. I was like, you know what? I'll take that because it's been too long since we just win headers at a minimum.
Yeah, I mean, obviously none of us really know what the situation is with signings at the minute. It seems to be just we can't buy anyone until we sell someone. So you'd imagine that Evans and Fofana are going to be the starting centre-back pairing, at least for the beginning of the season. But it's encouraging to see, hopefully, at least Soyuncu, Vestergaard, Amartey, etc., can take a bit of confidence from this game and build a bit of form going into it. So it's not a terrifying prospect if something happens to Evans or Fofana like it was last season.
Yeah, especially again with Fofana going down in the sea. I was thinking, please not again, please not again, please not again. Especially with it being literally a year to the day where that nearly happened. I was like, oh God. But thankfully that didn't come true as well. Then moving into the midfield again. The wing backs, we've got Thomas and Castagna. Both had a decent game. Both not really played that many minutes, but steady Eddies, did what they can. Especially Thomas is a young 21-year-old. I think there's a real player in there. I think both of them did what they need to do, but it wasn't exquisite, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I think Thomas is actually one of the few players who you can say probably did himself justice last season. He came on leaps and bounds. He added a lot of grit to his game defensively. I thought, he became a lot tougher. I'm not saying he's bulked up and he's Adama Traore or anything, but he managed to give as good as he got, go shoulder to shoulder with players, win his fair share of tackles. I would have said a year or so ago that wing back role suited him more, being able to get forwards. But yeah, he looks pretty comfortable both at left wing back and left back. And another comfortable showing for him. I'd be surprised if he's starting this season. I would imagine that James Justin is going to be the starting left back, but it's nice to have healthy competition. I mean, you'd probably say centre mid as well, but certainly the fullbacks is an area where we've got decent cover.
Yeah, and actually we've got in terms of strength and depth with that as well. Actually, we've not seen. I've just realised the players that we haven't seen this season. Bertrand being one of them. I've just realised we've not seen him at all. I don't know if he's still recovering from the injury.
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, he's not fully fit still.
Fair enough. And the other player, Kelechi Iheanacho, he's just gone missing. I mean, we knew he was playing, but the only time we've seen him, I think, was in the first game against Notts County, and he played with the under-23s.
Yeah, it very much feels like. I mean, Rodgers is always kind of favoured a lone striker. I know the first half we played the sort of front two with Perez and Daka, but certainly plan A for Rodgers is a lone striker, and you definitely feel like he favours obviously Vardy being the first choice, and then Daka is is far closer to Vardy's skill set than Iheanacho is in terms of a sort of profile of player. It's a real shame because Iheanacho's got so much to offer. And I think, honestly, like if we were going to sell him, he'd be a great buy for another team who perhaps play a system that would suit him a bit better, maybe with a front two or something like that. But it's never really felt like Rodgers is sort of warm to him.
It's really frustrating because, again, I'll speak to some Man City fans last week and they were just going, we love him too. But we had the same problem as you. We just couldn't get him into the team. And he just seems to be that player that's just I think our fan base loves him. I think Man City fan base still loves him. But it just doesn't seem to work. And again, with Rodgers playing the way he does, it doesn't seem to really, he's not pushed onto a level. I'm surprised nobody's actually come in for a bid for him, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the frustrating thing with probably Daka and Iheanacho is they probably look far better together. I mean, Daka was playing in a front two for RB Salzburg, and Iheanacho obviously had his best run of form for us sort of back in the season of 2021 when he was playing in the front two with Vardy. So the two of them actually would probably suit each other very well if they got a run of games in the side together. But as we said, kind of Rodgers doesn't really favour that, and obviously Vardy is, when fit, always going to be first choice. I would have thought that if there was a team, maybe there's just no teams out there at the minute, that have got the financial clout to spend a 25 million plus that we'd maybe look for Iheanacho, that actually need or have that sort of position available, that kind of secondary striker role.
Yeah, and a lot of it as well is to do with, they probably look at the transfers that we've done as well in terms of Mahrez, Maguire, Danny Drinkwater, and the amount that we've gone for. I think a lot of Premier League clubs go, especially outside the top six, like we're not bothering talking to Leicester City. Even Jeff Sluck for 12 million, to be honest, at the time was a decent buy. So I think they're put off by it. I think what's it called? He's put in the chat. Ethan's put in the chat. Great, good evening, Ethan. Brighton might be a good idea. I mean, it's not. I think I could kind of see it working there. I don't think he's that same kind of striker, but I think he's the kind of striker, he's worked really good with Barnes on that left-hand side, and having that overlapping runs and that 1-2 a lot of times, I think has worked really well for him. Yeah,
I think Brighton would be an interesting one. Obviously, they're in the midst of trying to fend off Man City's interest for Cucurella, aren't they?
Yeah.
Reports are to be believed. Man City wanted for 30 mil, and Man City wanted for 30 mil, and Brighton value him at 50 mil. So, be interesting to see whether they meet in the middle of 40 or whatever. But you'd imagine if they did get a sizable fee for Cucurella, maybe they've got some money to spend. Obviously, they're going to have to replace Cucurella, but there might be the funds available to look at a striker.
Yeah, potentially. Again, we'll bring it back to Leicester City for a little bit as well. And one player again in the midfield. Midfield three, again, Tielemans getting the captain. We'll get on to that in a little bit. But some players that keep talking about Dennis Pratt, again, a lot of shout outs for Dennis Pratt. He's just a great player. And he's very similar to a Dewsbury Hall before we had Dewsbury Hall, and it just seems like Rodgers doesn't fancy him in the Leicester squad, which is a real shame because he's a really talented player, all over the pitch, very technical, offers a lot of the same things that that KDH does, but he's never really been given a chance, Leicester, has he?
No, I mean, Rodgers seems to be very particular with his players. We've obviously spoken about Iheanacho. Soumare is another one who's not really hit it off. I mean, Nampalys Mendy was very much not out of favour of Rodgers. He really just been brought back in out of necessity and has done very, very well. Pratt just seems to be another one who just can't get on with him. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how Rodgers lines up this year. I think if we're playing a 4-2-3-1, then he's probably going to say that look, all he can offer Pratt is a bench role, basically to play back up to James Maddison at number 10. If we are going to play more of that 4-3-3 that we saw last season with kind of a holding midfielder, whether that's Ndidi or Mendy, and then two sort of roaming number 8s that obviously were KDH and Tielemans the majority of last season, that feels like there's going to be healthy competition there, and there could be a lot of potential for Pratt to play one of those number 8 roles.
Yeah, potentially as well. And also he can play in the number 8, coming back alongside playing that double pivot as well as going forward. And I think it was against Leeds over lockdown where he was playing a 3-4-3 on that right-hand side and he was causing Leeds all sorts of problems on that right. I remember very vividly. But yeah, he's a great player. Just doesn't, again, the loan move hasn't happened. I think the Torino move just hasn't happened as well. So, best of luck to him. But again, I can't see him being here for much longer as well. Again, but we just can't seem to shift our players at the moment. Tielemans captain. There's been a lot of. I have to mention it because there's been a lot of talk about a new contract. Is he going to leave? Is he going to stay? And then giving him the contract, giving him the armband. I mean, there wasn't really a lot of people on that in that team that was leaders, but I do think it's not the best move from Rodgers to give him the armband, considering what's happened over this summer.
Certainly an interesting one. I mean, Rodgers is always kind of stuck by the line that Tielemans is a consummate pro. He's going to give his best, whether he's training for one more day with the club or he's here for the rest of the season. He's part of Rodgers' kind of 5-man leadership team that he has at the club with the likes of Evans and Vardy and Schmeichel. He's obviously, valued very highly. So whether it was just kind of Rodgers repaying that, or whether it was kind of, we'll start you alongside your 2 Belgian compatriots and we'll give you the captain's armband, kind of metaphorical arm around the shoulder. I don't know, but I don't buy into what a lot of fans think, that Tielemans is sort of just down tools and doesn't want to be here anymore. I don't see that from him. I still think that he's got a lot of passion and he's got a lot to offer. Obviously, he wasn't really quite at the races last season in terms of what we'd seen from him in the previous kind of couple of years, but I still think he's a phenomenal player. And if he is to be here sort of past the summer, then I would anticipate him playing a vital role for us.
Yeah, and definitely, and being part of the team as well. And I think I think in this game he wasn't that great, but I think part of the reason was he's not had a preseason. This is his first game back, and you're looking at players like Daka, and even I think another player that I've mentioned, Perez. In that first half, I was really impressed with him playing that second striker role, kind of the number 10, but also playing on that right-hand side. There wasn't a lot of opportunities created, but I'd say the majority of them came through Perez.
Yeah, I think Perez has had a bit of a raw deal during his time at Leicester. It's, I think, quite clear that a right wing position, or at least a right wing in a 4-2-3-1, just doesn't suit him, which is where he's been shoehorned in for the vast majority of his appearances for the club. I think if he's playing at number 10, or he's playing as a support striker, or even in a 4-3-3 where he's playing on the right, but he's more of that kind of like inverted right forward, similar to how we saw Maddison play there back in the last season, I think he has got more to offer, and there is a decent player in there. So, yeah, I mean, we're looking to ship out, obviously players left, right, and centre. We're failing miserably at the minute. Perez might be one of them, but I think unless a decent offer comes in, my preference would probably be to keep him, because I still think he's got more to offer.
Yeah, and he's got, again, it's just not playing him out wide, playing him in the inside position, behind the striker, alongside a striker playing as front 2 could work with him really well as well. And then again, wasn't too much happening in the first half, but one good thing as well, we were just mentioning Pratt, great pressing from the front, and then Daka, the great physicality and great strength, and again, a finish that I think we'll see a lot more of, but a great finish by Daka.
Yeah, I think one thing that I loved about that from Daka was just the confidence and the kind of decisiveness to take it on first time. It'd be very easy for someone like Daka, having gone through such a kind of barren spell at the back end of last season, to be a bit low on confidence, come into this kind of preseason not really too sure. He took that as if someone who just scored 10 in his last 10. He looked sharp, he looked confident, no issues taking that first time on his left foot, surprising the keeper, going early. Yeah, really confident finish. And hopefully, that's a sign of things to come. It'll be interesting to see how much game time he gets this season. Very much feels like Vardy's still going to be the first choice. But, hopefully we can see more and more of that from Daka.
And I think it'll be like a phasing out process with Vardy playing less and less minutes, but Daka will be increasing. And I remember listening to an interview with him at the beginning of this, or just the beginning of preseason, off season, when the players are gone on the holidays. And he was interviewed about, I think, by some Zambian media. He goes, "How was your first time at Leicester?" And he goes, "It's okay." In reality, I think he did more than okay for Leicester. He did really well with the minutes he had, and the quality of finishes he had was fantastic. But I think he knows he can go up a few more levels, and I'm really excited to see him this season as well. Coming into the second half, again, we changed up from a 3-5-2 to a 4-2-3-1. And again, this back line of Ricardo, Evans, Fofana, and Justin looks like that's going to be the formation that Rodgers wants to go with going forward, and B, that looks like the back 4. Didn't really have too much to really defend, but they were really solid, I think, throughout the entire match.
Yeah, I mean, certainly better than the first 15 minutes against Leuven. That was an absolute shambles.
Yeah.
So, very much nice to see them kind of take control of things and, be confident. Ricardo looks fit and kind of ready. Interesting that we've kind of played this back four twice now. Would indicate probably that this is Rodgers starting back four. I guess the only debate that you'd have is should Castagna be in there? I don't think there's too much debate about the two centre backs. And I think obviously Castagna and Ricardo both feel like better suited to the right. So it really is kind of a straight shootout between the two of them. I think Justin's probably going to get that left back spot just by virtue of being the most comfortable right-footed player on that side. But solid showing.
Yeah, and again, it's good to see Ricardo not back to his best, but there was some spells where I'm not going to slate Fofana too much. Lost the ball a couple of times, but Ricardo was there just overlap to make sure to get that and cross over and get that and sort out that right hand side. James Justin on the left, I think, did a good performance considering getting forward a few times. He's going to be building back into the player that we know he can be. And once he get into full flow, I think before his injury, he was at times he was absolutely unplayable. We're seeing signs of that player just coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I know he got his first England cap just at the back end of the season over the summer. But I mean, if it wasn't for that injury, for me, he'd be England's first choice left back, especially with Ben Chilwell having been out for kind of second half of last season. And he'd certainly be on the plane to Qatar with Chilwell, I think, is one of the two left backs. It is such a shame, that devastating knee injury. And it's quite a difficult position as well, similar to Ricardo. It's such an explosive position. You need to get up and down that flank. There's a lot of twisting, a lot of turning. It is problematic when you have those sorts of injuries and you never really know how you're going to bounce back. You'd like to hope that he can sort of recover quicker than Ricardo. Ricardo's almost taken the whole of last season and still really isn't any, decent, but nowhere near the level that he was before. He was absolutely phenomenal before that. So, fingers crossed Justin kind of has a bit more luck, I guess, with his recovery.
Yeah, hopefully, I think somebody's put in the comments already. Where was it gone? One of the advantages that we've got no injuries, and I'm like, yeah, definitely agree there, because that's one thing at the moment where we've suffered a lot over the last couple of years with injuries, and just come at terrible times and long-term injuries as well that just haven't seemed to shaken off. So hopefully this season, that's one benefit of this. Regardless if we win or lose, we've got some minutes in the legs. We've not got anything injured, and a couple of players that have one player in particular, I think people have mentioned in the comments. I'll try and find them. Soumare just looked like a different animal today. We're just discussing off camera, but what have I got? I've got the best I've seen Soumare. I've got his vision, the ability to spray a pass, his ability to drive forward with the ball and then drop back with the defense, and then play the lovely little 1-2s he was playing with, playing in that kind of. He wasn't playing as a CDM, but it allowed KDH to go forward, playing a nice 1-2 with Fofana and Evans. He just looks like a different beast.
Yeah. I mean, my worry is I thought he looked exceptional last preseason as well, and then he dropped to the performances that he did. There's a lot of rumours circulating that he's on the cusp of signing for Monaco, that he's agreed personal terms, and there's only a sort of a couple of million difference in terms of our valuation with Monaco at the minute. So, if that goes through, I just think England women have just scored a fantastic goal in extra time, 2-1. What a goal!
Jeez,
brilliant.
The semis.
Soumare has been great. In that game, in that second half, I thought he was excellent. But whether that's because he kind of knows he's on the cusp of a move to Monaco, whether that's he feels he has a real point to prove and he doesn't want to be transferred, we're only second guessing on that front. But certainly encouraging signs, and it can only be a good thing if he's playing well, whether that's to sort of inflate his transfer fee or whether that's to reintegrate him into the squad for next season.
Yeah, exactly. But then at the end of the day, you want the player is still under contract to us, and he still is improving. So Ethan's put in, I hope he stays. I think there's a few people in the comments that are like, we need to keep him again, but you can't keep him and Pratt and Tillemans. That positions are just, and then KDH has just signed a new contract. He wants to be playing more. Another player as well, a bit further forward, but James Maddison again. He was. The technical ability, we all know James Maddison's insane, but one thing that I really noticed as well, he's pushing back into that midfield, not as a quite number 8, but he's pushing back into that position and linking up the play, spraying passes more. and I think his overall athleticism has come up a lot more last season, but especially over preseason, I've realised.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as well. I think when he plays in that 4-2-3-1 in the number 10, we tend to, out of possession, press as a 4-4-2, and Maddison kind of pairs with Vardy or Daka or whoever's up front to kind of press. But in possession, he does drop deep, and sort of once they've kind of the pressing phase is over and their team, the opposition play out from the back, he does tend to drop in and get stuck in. He's just been absolutely phenomenal, hasn't he? Like, is kind of reminiscent to me of sort of the season before we won the title, when we went on the Great Escape and, we put in a string of incredible performances. And obviously we just carried that on into next season and it just got better and better and better. Maddison back end of last season's whole second half of last season was absolutely exquisite. And based on that second half performance, it looks like he's just going to carry that on. As that comment says there from Ethan, he looks hell bent on proving Gareth Southgate wrong and getting this in this squad, And for whatever his reason is, it doesn't really matter to us, does it? I mean, if he's going to play like that week in, week out, he's going to be England's best attacking midfielder.
Yeah, and again, if Gareth Southgate doesn't want to play him, that's our benefit as Leicester City fans. You know what I mean? He's gonna have a nice time off. And I think I was saying this. I was saying this when we kind of a keep sell loan over the summer. We looked at the number of players that are going to go with the international squads, and there's quite a few that there's majority of Leicester, the majority of the starting lineup. We're saying the 11 doesn't go. So, for example, Maddison should go. The more likely chances that he probably doesn't. Harvey Barnes probably won't go. Jamie Vardy won't go. You're looking at KDH. It could be on the list, but probably not. Some more if he's not there. But then you've got Justin. It's a 50-50 for me. Evans isn't going. Ricardo is more maybe will go. Maybe there's quite a few players that are maybe compared to like a top six who will have European football and will have a bigger squad, a bigger budget, but they will be playing a main part in their team deep into the World Cup compared to a lot of our players.
Yeah, I think, it's very doom and gloom on Leicester, specifically on Twitter at the minute, with the fan base and the ongoing transfer saga and, the no new incomings, etc. But there are reasons to be optimistic. Like you just said, barring sort of innocuous knock to Wilfred and Ndidi, which we're not too sure about, fully fit squad, more minutes in the tank, not loads of players going to the World Cup, probably having that sort of preseason break, no European football, so kind of only one game a week to sort of recharge in between. If Rodgers can kind of sort out the set pieces, and that is a big if, then I think we are primed to have a really strong season. Hopefully, I mean, we've got Villa and Newcastle are kind of my main worry outside the traditional big six, because they have spent a lot of money and they've strengthened. But, as we've seen, new signings don't always hit the ground running. I think we've got a decent chance if we can really inject that sort of passion and enthusiasm back into the squad. I mean, we've seen it 2 years in a row. We finished fifth, and this is basically the exact same team. This team is good enough to achieve more. We just need to get that confidence and belief back and play to the best of our ability and hope for no injuries.
And also the club have made, even though they've not signed any players, they've made the right moves at the right time with giving out new contracts. You're looking at lines of 2022 for Evans, KDH and Fofana, like future of Leicester City for the next few years. You're looking at them going, right, they're on locks of, these guys are going to be at the forefront of that. James Justin, another player who's going to have a great future with us as well. You're looking at Ricardo as well. They gave a contract to. There will hopefully be other people as there as well. I don't know if Charlie's frozen. Right, that's my end. But yes, again, there's lots to be positive about, but there's a lot of things there that's happening on the other end. I'm just trying or not. Charlie, can you hear us?
Hey, sorry, internet dropped out. My bad.
No worries, that's fine. You're back now, so you're all good. I've just come back to so again, I'll come back to Maddison, but the way he scored, the assist and the goal he took today was some of the best football I've seen him play. And we've seen a lot of good from Maddison, especially last year and the year before. But that is a man who his confidence is flowing out of him. Yes, I know it's preseason. Yes, I know it's a championship team, but some of that play today, he's just flowing out of him.
Yeah, I mean, it did very much feel like I was concerned when Maddison kind of lined up in the number 10 position. I know traditionally that is his best position, but he was so good in that inverted right wing role at the back end of last season. Kind of like, well, everyone's crying out saying we need a right winger, but if he's going to play like that as sort of a right inverted forward, then, just keep him there, just keep him playing brilliantly. But it does kind of feel, especially with kind of Yuri starting the first half, and then that second half team felt closer, certainly a lot closer to what I imagine we'll see at Brentford. I think if Ndidi was fit, he probably would have played instead of Soumare. Obviously, Soumare played very well, but you'd imagine that's probably going to be close or thereabouts to the starting 11. Schmeichel's probably going to replace Everson in goal, but and Maddison played at number 10, and he was just absolutely sensational. Like I said, I think he's got a big chip on his shoulder with the whole Gareth Southgate and England saga, but if it's going to play into our hands and be of our benefit, then brilliant.
Exactly. Use it to our benefit for that as well. And it's not out of the question him going, but I'm seeing a lot more people this season going, why is he not gone? From other opposition teams. And that was what was really interesting. Before, you wouldn't hear it as much, but now a lot of opposition fans are going, why is Maddison not on the going with England? And I've looked at them going, it's kind of standard England from a fan outside the top six perspective, or maybe it's a Leicester perspective as well.
Yeah, I think like Southgate traditionally doesn't tend to play with a number 10. He usually plays that sort of 4-3-3. And I think he's always said that he doesn't see Maddison in that bracket, purely, I think, because he's got quality wingers already. Raheem Sterling is his first choice. Rashford's been off form, but, the likes of Sancho, etc. He's got Saka, he's got decent players in those positions. Grealish is another example. And that kind of number 8 role, people like Mason Mount, he kind of favours over him. Obviously, he's not going to play the Declan Rice or Calvin Phillips role. And even players like James Ward-Prowse, Conor Gallagher seems to favour their kind of energy in box to box. I wouldn't be surprised that if he was going to take a Leicester midfielder that he took KDH over Maddison, because he thinks he fits the system for England better. But yeah, I mean, it's hard on Maddison, because you've got to say that the way he's playing at the minute, if we are going to line up in a 4-3-3 England over the World Cup, then he should still go, even if it's just to fill one of those right wing roles.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he could do a job there. And also, as you were saying, if England decide to play with, they probably won't, but if they're playing with a front three and having him on the inside, having somebody like a Trent bombing on that right-hand side, the link-up play there would be absolutely brilliant as well. It's not really what he does, but with somebody bombing, his play to bring in another player on that right and for a cross to get in, I think is great as well. So something that's a little bit overlooked, and people do know him as that number 10, yes, but as you were saying, that last season in that inside right role, he thrived in that position.
Yeah, or even if it's just as a kind of plan B off the bench. We saw Grealish used a lot like that at the Euros, kind of coming on to change the game. If Southgate wants to line up in this 4-3-3, but we're playing against a deep block and we're struggling for a goal and we need to throw someone on the last 20 minutes, a few better players to bring on to unlock a defence than James Maddison, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And we know this. Again, it's just we have to see with England what's going to happen in the World Cup. But again, with Maddison, he made himself in this performance, and I think hopefully going into the World Cup, he will make sure that his name is in the forefront of a lot of England fans' mind. Hopefully, Gareth Southgate's. Another player that, again, I don't think will get into the England squad on that left-hand side, Harvey Barnes. I mean, the potential of him is incredible, and a lot of other fans have said again, Tottenham fans have said, Liverpool fans said we really rate this player. We do as Leicester fans. Is it just a confidence issue? But you're saying a great player there, and this preseason, I've just not seen him take on a man and just go, right, you're mine. He did it once, I think, towards the latter stage of the second half, but I've not seen it enough to really go, Harvey Barnes is a game changer, if you see what I mean.
Only time I've seen it this preseason was second part of the first half against Luton. 3 or 4 times he just absolutely had the fullback on toast and just roasted him. I feel like Barnes isn't a very technically gifted player. Barnes is got raw athleticism, his pace and power. That's what Barnes is good at. And Barnes is at his best when he almost doesn't have too much time to think, and he just picks up the ball, there's space in front of him, and he can just drive at a fullback one-on-one. We're making nice passing patterns on the right-hand side of the pitch, say with Maddison or whoever, and we can switch play quickly and get Barnes in those 1v1 situations. That's where he's at his penetrative best. Like, if we're playing against a low block, and I think you saw this a couple of times last season, like against the likes of Stade Rennes and PSV and stuff, we almost sub Barnes off and we look to Lookman instead, because Lookman's got that a bit more ingenuity about him and can kind of take on a man and create stuff in tight spaces. I don't really see that as Barnes's game. Barnes is someone who's better on the counter attack, who likes to play in space. You know, when he's running and he's in full flight, he's a scary prospect. He is tough to stop. But yeah, I feel probably when we're talking about England, for the level of competition you have there, I'd probably just say technically he's probably just not quite gifted enough.
Yeah, it's not quite hanging out. But I think, again, if we can get the best out of him, there is the option of it as well. And especially with you got players like KD, his link-up play last year with KDH and Luke Thomas was really good. But he just needs to kind of, KDH has gone up another level. And we've seen he'll probably go up another level, which is scary. But he'll go up another level hopefully this year. With Barnes, he's got to look at that and go, I want to do that as well. And I want to go with KDH and make myself, because at the moment, KDH is one of the first names on the team sheet. I can't say that Barnes is in that same predicament.
Yeah, I feel like Barnes probably is there, but that says more about the lack of depth that we have in wingers, more than anything else. I mean, when your only competition is Mark Albrighton and Jose Perez, one of which isn't really even a winger, it's it's slim pickings. I mean, if Lookman came in and we were committed to playing Lookman on the left, then I feel like that could really push Barnes on. But yeah, his position does feel relatively safe, because unless we're going to play with a front two, there's just no real competition for him. I mean, who can realistically come in and do without Lookman and do anything on the left that Barnes can do?
Yeah, exactly. And at the moment, it's slim pickings in terms of that. But again, with Barnes, there's the opportunity there with playing one game a week. And we've just got to make sure that we get the best out of him. Hopefully that will be the case. Apart from that, I think we've covered pretty much everything in terms of that. I think the only thing we've not covered is we scored a goal from a header. Wes Fofana scored again. That doesn't happen very often in the opposition box. And we kept a clean sheet, which is a bonus as well. But yeah, Fofana, great leap. We've seen him rise a few times. I think we've only seen a couple of headed goals. And if he can keep this up going into pre-season, we could be a real threat, because we know we can do it against Rennes and then against today as well, putting the game to bed about 3-0. But it's something that we've really struggled with, especially last year, is converting from set pieces offensively and defending them, but especially from offensively. If we could sort that out, especially for Fofana, I think we could do so. It's just an area that I know we can improve that. And I think defending set pieces and then free kicks as well, not judging Maddison too much, but we could do better at free kicks. But Fofana getting the header, I think is fully deserved, because it just makes the Leicester players fall more in love with him. Hey.
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers is and we can talk all day about the tactical setup from corners and what we're going to do, zonal man marking, etc. But I mean, Rodgers has spoken at length about the players just not having the sheer commitment, passion, and willingness to just get their head on a ball, and that's something that you can never really level at Fofana. He's always in there. I mean, the bloke's come back from breaking his leg, ankle, and knee, and he's straight in there sprinting and smashing in tackles, and he's right up there against Rennes. First game back, scoring a header. It's ridiculous. He's the epitome of committed in that sense. And it is just great to have someone like that who's just, I guess got that passion and got that willingness to just go and attack balls in the air.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think as well, obviously, I think that's everything for this one. But coming into the next game, we've got a weird we're doing that weird thing again where we've got two games going on at the same time. Rotherham, I keep saying Rochdale or Rotherham. And then I'm going to Derby away as well. So we just basically, Charlie, we just got to build on what we've done so far, right?
Yeah, I think it's always important not to read too much into pre-season. But that said, today looked a hell of a lot better than the first two games. You'd like to think we can continue building. The press looks like we're slowly kind of ironing out the issues that we saw in the first two games. So, there's a lot of intensity in that. So fingers crossed that settles. And obviously the back four as well. Continue to gel, continue to get minutes together. I think that's just really important for kind of like, communication and just, getting to grips with one of each other's playing style again after so long not playing as a settled backline. But yeah, I'd be fingers crossed Wilfred Ndidi can come back and feature at pre-season at least for a game or two. It'd be a big loss for Wilfred Ndidi to go into next season without any pre-season minutes under his belt. So yeah, overall positive game. Hardly anything to criticise in that whole game. So really enjoyable watch. And yeah, fingers crossed it's more of the same for the next sort of 2 to 3 pre-season games.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. And a little bit more, again, what we love, especially in the second, it was the controlling of the game. I've not seen that in a while. The aggressiveness of pressing down, which I was really impressed, and controlling the game. We've seen that. I think I put prime Brendan 1920, and that's what it kind of reminded me of, that kind of play, which was some of my favourite football watching Leicester. But hopefully we can keep that up again coming into the new season. None of this really matters unless we don't hit the ground running against Brentford, but we are making good signs at the moment. So thank you, Charlie. Again, it's linked to his Twitter is down below. Thank you again. Thank you for Charlie. Thanks for joining. And thank you everybody for your comments and everything. Really appreciate it. And we'll see everybody in the next video. So goodbye.